Welcome to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews, and convention panels. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Current size audience, we can kind of keep it light and conversational anyway. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can certainly start so we're not rushing for time. And I'm sorry, what are your two names? I'm so sorry. What's your name?
Diego.
Diego. Nice to meet you, Diego.
I'm Patty.
Patty, nice to meet you, Patty, as well. I'm Mike.
And Daphne.
Nice to
Nice to
meet you.
meet you.
It's just a joke. So now we're all friends.
Yeah,
Now we have 5 people. It's a game circle right there.
that's right. That's right.
So we're more of a little bit of an introduction about myself. So I have a podcast called Omelette Prevail, and it's all about interviewing all kinds of different creative professionals, everyone from musicians to fellow podcasters, as well as streamers, social media influencers, but also talk to founders. A wide spectrum. I like to joke that everyone's creative, so I get to talk to everybody. But I love to listen to their origin stories about how they got to where they are today. Everything from their successes as well as their failures and struggles. And in fact, just celebrated 5-year anniversary of the podcast last week. Thank you. And so yeah, that's a little bit about myself. Daphne, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I am primarily a musician. Actually, I have a band called Daphne and the Glitches, and then I also play in a couple other bands called Fairy Bones and Ghost Moon, all kind of based in Phoenix. And I actually just recently moved to Los Angeles, so I'm kind of like split between the two right now. But aside from that, I'm an avid gamer. And recently became a big Dungeons and Dragons fan, like within the last few years. My drummer finally allowed me to play, because I had always been curious, and then he was like, well, I DM. And then we played a game actually with Mike, and I was hooked. And then he dropped out of the band, and we no longer had a DM, and I'm like, well, I can DM. So now that's become a big part of my passion and kind of like what I want to be. I haven't started yet, but I'm going to be making content about, tabletop gaming, dungeon mastering, etc. And just gaming in general. Just it's all good.
So, because also, one of the benefits of having a relatively small group, and not entirely up to all of you, of course, because we want to make sure everyone's comfortable, but we can make this more of an open discussion. I mean, we do have, talking points for the two of us, just in case, but, I mean, this is for all of you to have this conversation about, being inclusive and diverse in the gaming community. So, if that's okay with the three of you, we can just kind of open things up a little bit. And so, I'll start off with the general starting off point question, which is, when we talk about inclusivity and diversity, besides the demographics themselves, right? And I'll start with you, Daphne, to kind of start off the conversation.
Who, me?
What does that really truly mean about being inclusive and diverse as far as being involved with the community? What does that mean to you?
Well, I know that for me, speaking of the first game I ever got to play of D&D was pretty pivotal, because my drummer was wise enough to ask everyone at our session 0, okay, your name and pronouns and your character's pronouns and name. And I was just like, oh, yeah, okay. I've never had anyone sort of ask me those questions at the beginning of a game. And like D&D and other tabletop games like have that fun role-playing element where you all are collaborating on this story, and sometimes I feel like it's all too easy to fall in the traps of telling kind of the same exact type of story, the same exact type of characters. I've talked to Mike about how like one of the easiest changes I intentionally made when I started running my own campaigns is like, okay, don't assume all the goblins are guys. You know, like don't assume that all of the NPCs you meet are going to be straight. Don't assume blah, blah, blah about these characters, because I think when you get a little bit more diverse with the types of characters you encounter, it creates a much more interesting narrative and a much more interesting dynamic with how the players are going to interact with them too.
I'm also curious about the three of you, is that do you have any examples of something that, or somebody that did something in the community that made you feel welcome? Like, was there a specific act or something that they said? I mean, Daphne mentioned about how her first experience with D&D asking specifically about pronouns. Do either of you have any kind of similar experience to that?
Sort of. I mean, not to the same level of like Daphne's experience, but like I remember I was playing with this one group doing a one-shot, excuse me, and I noticed that every time like we did a skill check or a roll, there was like, okay, like after we succeeded or failed, the DM's like, okay, how does this look? Like, what does your character do?
Yeah.
And I really like that idea, because it's not like, okay, like the person's got to be good enough at the scope before you can actually roll. It's like, okay, just roll and then see what it looks like. And I thought that was a really interesting way to just, let people express their creativity and, just express how they want their character to be. So that was one experience for me.
I actually, my first gaming experience was about 25 years ago, and it was actually LARP, White Wolf LARP.
Awesome.
And if you know anything about that, it's a very different community than tabletop.
Sure.
But my first experience was really super diverse, very LGBTQ, and what I love about it is how much they nurtured me, because I'd never pulled cards or rolled dice before, and they were just super nurturing. They would help me with costumes and help me kind of make the character I desired, no matter who or what it was. And it just became so nurturing, and it felt amazing just how inclusive it was from the get-go. So, and I mean, that's always how I've approached it since then.
Yeah.
So, I loved it. So,
That's awesome.
it's nice not to play in back alleys.
Yeah.
I know. I think that's also the other thing too, right? Is I think that, and this goes also in case of diversity and inclusivity, is the aspect of that. I think as a whole, it's been more accepted to be into these type of things and to fully be able to express ourselves, where we felt, a little bit more. I'm trying to find the right word here. Maybe secluded, maybe is, in a sense where we felt like we would be criticized for wanting to be involved in these things and to express ourselves in a particular way. And I feel like that these days it's a lot more open and accepted, and honestly even encouraged. And I've been seeing this across the board for all ages and all different types of demographics.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure maybe you all can relate. Like, I grew up, with... Fortunately, I didn't get the, video games are going to rot your brain kind of mentality. But, there was, a limit of, maybe you shouldn't be... Maybe you should, go out. And it's good to go outside and touch grass sometimes, for sure. But, I think that when I was younger, I loved video games so much that the idea of maybe I want to make them was one that came to mind. And my parents were maybe a little skeptical about that. Maybe I don't know if, that's a good path for you. But now we're at a place where anyone can become a game dev. Anyone can download Unity or Game Maker or whatever and make the games that you want to see that maybe you didn't even have when you were younger or currently. And I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about, is I've started getting into game development and doing the things that you always have these ideas of like, why isn't this feature in a game? Like, why hasn't there been like a gender slider like in Baldur's Gate 3? Why isn't there like I think it's weird now when I play a game and I can't choose even male or female. Like, I think I downloaded a game once on my phone. It was like a zombie survival thing, and all of the characters were men. And I even reached out to the developer. I'm like, hey, is there any chance like maybe you could just like add like one female character? And they literally responded back saying like, yeah, I don't think that's the kind of people who are interested in this game.
Wow.
Which was wild to me.
Wow.
To have that kind of, I mean, like, I know it's out there, but in this day and age, I remember the first time in Pokemon I could choose to be a girl. That was a defining moment for me.
It's interesting too, right? Because is the importance of having identity in the games that you play.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Seeing yourself.
And seeing yourself in those games, or being able to extend yourself to be outside your comfort zone. I know, for example, there are many males that like to play female characters for that reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa, or some will be, or females will want to see female representation, and vice versa. So I feel like that gaming in so many ways is literally an extension of ourselves and our own curiosities and our own ways that we want to express ourselves that we normally would not be able to do. One of the things that I wanted to touch base upon about gaming and also growing gaming being more accepted is I realized that most of my friendships, most of my bonds that I have in my life started with gaming. And I think that's also important too, is finding that welcome environment. And a big one for me is Magic the Gathering. I'm a big Magic the Gathering player. And so in fact, that's how Daphne and I formed a friendship, was for that reason. Daphne was in a band. I used to be an artist manager, and Daphne was in the band that I was representing at the time. And I remember we were actually having a party at my apartment and noticed that I had boxes of Magic cards. And she goes, oh, I play Magic too. I'm like, oh, we should play sometime. And so we started playing stuff and so forth. And that's how we found that we had a lot of things in common. And I found that was a very much a thread in my entire life, was not only to form those bonds, but also to form bonds with people that are outside of outside my comfort zone, which was wonderful for me. It brought me so much understanding and joy, and realizing everyone's background is different. Like, everyone's perspectives can be different, and it was something that I didn't see as much outside of gaming as I would like to have seen. Music, for sure. Music was also a big one too, but definitely within gaming is just, I've really discovered, especially even more recently, is that it challenged me to see things in a different way, and to understand how other people feel or how they want to be representing themselves. And it's been a wonderful, beautiful joy to experience that through gaming. So, and speaking of which, too, I want to kind of bring up the fact that, because of these elements, we also now having these experiences in gaming and so forth, and now being in the place of forming our own communities, right? We want to make sure that we're continuing essentially that legacy of making sure that people are continuing to feel welcome. And so now you saw your prior drummer, taking the heat as a DM. What things have you done now, Daphne, as a DM, to make sure that people feel welcome and inclusive in the gaming sessions that you have?
Yeah, no. I know that session 0 and like asking those questions was a huge impact, and that definitely was a must kind of thing moving forward. Is like, this may go without saying for some, but I think for some people they forget that it's like a collaborative thing, and that we are telling a story together, and that to at the end of the day, I want my players to have as much fun as I have DMing, and making sure that I know what they're looking for, what they want. You know, do they enjoy combat? Do they enjoy role playing? Do they enjoy what I'm looking for? Like is exploration, and tailoring my game to meet their needs. Because if I'm playing a game that's primarily focused on combat and I've got a bunch of RPers over here, is not going to be the same kind of experience. And balancing that too, I think, once again, that first session taught me a lot, because we had one player who was experienced and had played a lot of D&D, and I think had a particular way he expected the game to go. And the group who was playing with him, including Mike and several of my bandmates and my partner, we were all silly role players who wanted to putz around town and, you know, like do silly side quests that didn't advance the plot all the time. And I felt, and I think the rest of the group did at times, frustration that like, oh, we weren't playing the game right. And that friction was uncomfortable, but the game that we played ended up kind of ending when the drummer got too busy and we weren't playing anymore. But that left an impression on me to be like, okay, I'm not going to let that happen at my table. I'm going to make sure that everyone has the same expectation of what we're getting out of it, and that if you're getting frustrated at how the game's going, it's like, well, we discussed it, we talked about it, you know, at the beginning, what this was going to be. So let's try to work together to make sure that everyone's still vibing. What other things? I mean, trying to diversify and you know, change up the expectations of what the NPCs and characters are. Also, like, okay, we talk about identity, we talk about pronouns, we talk about these sort of ways to think outside the box in terms of how the game's played, but also as a storyteller and as someone who's, you know, like I've worked on filmmaking and screenwriting and things like that, and story is really important. Don't just make those choices just for the sake of it. Like, how is that going to impact the game? How is that going to impact how, you know, these characters and these players interact? Making those choices have meaning and have weight is another way I like to make my table feel like we're not just doing it because, I suppose.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that's also important too. There's I feel a difference between, and like there's a big importance of intent, right?
Yeah.
Where you can have something that's inclusive and diverse, but what is the meaning behind that? We've seen that also before, where some people will do it just because, or maybe that is just of an expectation of them, rather than feeling there's some sort of importance behind it and actually including it into whatever that community is, rather than feeling like it's essentially being shoehorned in out of it, almost like an expectation on their part.
Mm-hmm.
So can you deep dive a little bit further into making sure that it has meaning to it, rather than just feeling like it's just there because?
Yeah, I was trying to think of some examples of how we've done that. I remember one particular game where I had a character who was had just recently come out as non-binary, and that was kind of a big thing for them at the time. And so their character was also non-binary, and they were a shifter. Are you all familiar with what a shifter is? So like werewolf-y type of character. And I think that you know, going in between was an externalization of like, you know, let me explore this. I think, you know, games are so great for allowing people to explore aspects of their personality that they want to, in a way maybe they couldn't in regular life or don't feel as safe. So we talked about it ahead of time and be like, okay, so, you know, what's your character's deal? What's the backstory? And they were like, this was their first time ever doing tabletop and role playing, and so like we really had to like talk it out and walk through some of these things. And they're like, all right, I'm really not sure. All I know is this character feels like they don't fit, they don't belong, and is looking for that community and that group. So we made that kind of a big part of how things went in the game. And I made sure, you know, like, do you all familiar with lines and veils? You know what that is, y'all know what that is. You know, make sure we're not gonna go too far, but like the townsfolk were a little concerned about this wolf person. Like, are they safe to have around? You know, like, what's the deal here? And sort of like helping that town get comfortable with that character being in town. And then slowly the town was like, no, we love Ben. Ben is awesome. Like, we want all, you know, anyone is welcome here in, what was the town called? It was a really cute name. Sackville, I think. And seeing that progression and seeing like the smile on my player's face as the town started coming around was so worth it. And unfortunately that game didn't get to completion, as is the case with a lot of tabletop games, unfortunately. But having that moment was a really rewarding one for just such a small thing as to be like, okay, let's see how we can implement. I think the big quest was there was a troll that was eating all of the livestock in town, but they all were blaming Ben for doing it. Like, they're like, I think it's this wolf person. And they ended up finding the troll, you know, getting the evidence, proving that it was not them, and it was a very cathartic moment.
Vindication.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't me.
So you mentioned about safe, and I know this is a little bit of a different topic, but I'm going to use it as a segue anyway because you led me up to it. But there's a big difference between having a space that is welcome to, you know, to all genders, races, all kinds of backgrounds and so forth. You can be also welcoming, but also necessarily have a safe space. So I want to make that distinction clear is, what do you consider to have a safe space, especially when it comes to game?
Sure. I mean, I know for me, it's a huge, it's all about communication, you know. It's kind of the lines and veils things we talked about, making sure we know where people's boundaries are, while simultaneously, you know, finding areas that we can explore that may be difficult or, you know, like could be touchy, but we still feel okay exploring that and making sure that we all know, you know, like, hey, if a line does get crossed, it's okay to bring it up in game, in the moment. Like, if we need to take a break, if we need to like refocus, that's totally cool. Inviting a diverse group of people. I mean, I know that's kind of going back to demographics, but it's sometimes if I know I've run games that's a lot of men and like one female player. And sometimes that female player can feel not quite part of the group. And that can be the case with any, you know, minority in a table. If you're a person of color, you know, etc., there are things that maybe are going to be excluded and not thought about, let's say. So encouraging communication, because I know I'm not the perfect DM, and I know, we all have our blind spots, making sure that the players feel comfortable communicating and saying, having that open dialogue is, I think, in most cases, the biggest thing.
I'll say too, and of course, for smaller groups, it's a little bit different, but especially for people that but especially for those that you're not familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
having a set of code of conduct, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
I think is also very helpful, where it's very upfront of what the code of conduct is. This is what if you want to be a part of this group, this is what is expected of you. These are things that you need to respect to be a part of this. So this way, it makes it very transparent. In fact, one of the examples that I love is, are you familiar with Gamers Guild? They're up in Phoenix area. So we've had actually one of the co-owners on our panel, and one of the things that they mentioned is that their code of conduct is right in the window in the storefront at both of they have 2 locations in front of their locations, and this makes it very clear what their code of conduct is. And what I appreciate about the fact was how transparent that is across the board. And they literally mentioned, like, if you disagree with our code of conduct, that's okay, but then this place is not going to be for you. And I liked that it really emphasized the fact of that everyone that comes into our space is going to be safe. We're going to make sure our team's going to make sure that you feel safe in here, and if for any reason you feel unsafe, that you feel comfortable enough to let us know, and that we will take appropriate action accordingly. And this way everyone's on the same page and everyone has those same expectations. And then this way too, at least then if you feel like that there's something that somebody did or said that made you uncomfortable, you can do something about it. And I think that's so important, especially with gaming stores as well, right? That generally usually predominantly men are in there. And so, and not from my own personal experience, but I know there are many female players that go in there and they feel uncomfortable because of the topics or because of the actions of other people, and it's good to make sure that they feel safe in there as well. That everyone again is welcome in those communities. So, in fact, one of the things that I also appreciated too, when it comes to making sure it's a safe space, is that Gamers Guild will have different levels depending upon what the infraction essentially is, and they can determine from that point if it's just a warning to the other person, whether they are completely banned from the store, depending upon how severe that is, and so forth. And I think that's also good to have that gauge as well, because inevitably you're going to have some sort of conflict, right? Again, everyone's from different backgrounds, and when you have a diverse, I think just in general, but especially when you have a diverse group of people, that you may end up saying something or doing something that unintentionally offended the other person, right? And so I feel like that's also important to acknowledge the fact that sometimes a conflict will arise, and when that does happen, it's important to recognize on how you act upon that. So, Daph, I want to hear more about you on those things, because I know that you've been sometimes on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, as you were talking, it kind of reminded me that, so obviously communication, but going more specifically, being willing to have the tough conversations when it calls for it is something that can be challenging and uncomfortable at times. But at the end of the day, if part of your group, part of your table group, or gamer group or Discord server or whatever are making other people feel uncomfortable or doing something inappropriate, if you're in charge, you're the one who should take the initiative.
To be in that bad spot. It sucks.
Yeah. And it's usually not fun, but there are ways to go about it that, to have empathy going into those conversations. I think one of the situations that always comes to mind in terms of having tough conversations is I moderate quite a few Discord servers. And we had a member who was making a lot of lewd comments and postings. And then we found out that they were underage. So, and this was a person who seemed well-intentioned and sweet, you know, for all intents and purposes, but we have to put up a boundary there, right? And my biggest fear was this was a trans person who was struggling to find community and seemed enthusiastic about, hey, this is a cool place, I'm really excited to make all these new friends. And I had to go, hey, so I need to have a conversation with you because it's come to my attention that you are under 18, and we are the type of channel that is going to have stuff that unfortunately won't be able to be a part of this community. However, the main thing I want you to know is I don't want you to feel like I'm kicking you out for doing something wrong per se. There's probably more precise language I could use, but what I tried to do is go the extra mile and be like, hey, I went and looked for some alternative places that you can go, and when you're over 18, come on back, no problem. And it was a little uncomfortable, and I think there were some feelings hurt, even trying to be as gentle about it as possible. But at the end of the day, it was to protect not only the community, but that person from a difficult situation. And yeah, it's not fun. It's not easy. And that was the first time I ever had to have that kind of conversation in that situation. And a lot of times you're going to be put into weird situations where you're like, I can't believe I'm having this conversation right now. But it was, for the good of everyone involved.
I also did want to see what everyone else, because I want to make sure we don't run out of time. So did any of you have any questions that you'd like to ask us or anything that you would bring up? Like, please.
If there's something
this is for
you came here
to
get out of this and we're talking about other things, please let us know.
Yes.
So I'm lucky. I've got a diverse group of friends, so it brings it to the table of whatever game I'm doing. How's a good way to let people know you're approachable? What's a good way to show that you're an ally?
Yeah.
Like, we do a lot of open gaming, and we're always like, at the game store, sure, come sit down, listen to us be stupid for a while. Join in the silliness, But what's another way for other folks out there to show that you're an ally, that you're approachable?
Totally. I think that's a question I ask myself a lot, too, because I'm always, like, I've definitely had in my head, like, God, I want to run a game that's just all trans femmes. And I've never had that, and I think that would be fun. But how do I find these elusive trans femmes that, are going to play my game? How do I put myself out there? And the nice part about being in the time that we are is we do have a lot of these technology options available to us. There are ways to advertise your community or your group as inclusive. Hell yeah.
Not be a supervillain, that's a big one.
But okay, so specifically, let's try to get nitty gritty. So in your situation, you're talking about you're at your LGS, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
You're running a game, and you're wanting more people to get involved, right? Mm-hmm. Is this like a regular group of friends that meets on a specific date or anything?
Usually, it's sort of like Adventure League, setup of the advertise open table gaming this day, this place. Come join us,
And do you advertise already?
Normally for our groups, I've like I said, I've got a great diverse group.
Sure.
And I've got a wait list. Like
Oh wow!
Like,
Oh, that's
wow.
fantastic.
You're already ahead of the.
Yeah,
ahead of the
So
game.
me personally, I'm covered, but for new folks that are trying to do it, you know, I mean, I know, like, thankfully, like I said, I got a diverse group and say, hey, if you have friends that want to join, this is the place. We will 86 any of the negativity that happens because this is the safe place.
Yeah.
We all want to have fun.
Right.
You know, bring different opinions to the games because that's how you make different cool games happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have some suggestions.
You got some thoughts?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ask questions. So anybody who comes to the store, right, is asking them questions like, oh, well, what kind of games do you like to play? Do you, what are things that are into and so forth? Oh, we have this. Oh, have you ever thought about this? We have a group that gets together to play this type of game. So I feel that when you start asking anybody questions about who they are and what they're into and so forth, naturally their guards could start getting down a little bit and be a little bit more open to at least trying something out. I know also too, just in general, right, depending upon the game, like I've never done LARPing before in my life, right? So to me that seems so, like even D&D, honestly, when Daphne invited me to play D&D, it was always something that I was fascinated about. But it felt so overwhelming. And like, I don't even know where to start with this. Like, how do I even I sure? Like, I remember looking at the character sheet for the first time and just like staring going, sure, I don't know. Like, what's this? Right? And it's one, but what made it for me wanting to try it was because I've already had Daphne, who we've already had a close friendship with, that I knew I was already in a comfortable and safe space where it's okay, I had no idea what I was doing. It was just a space that I felt like that was welcoming to people that have never done this before in their lives, and people are excited that they're going to teach me on how to play it. I don't feel like, because again, coming from like competitive gaming world, right? It's like sometimes it's like, it's Magic, something like that too. Sometimes it feels like I don't want to feel like a burden on you and things like that, right? But I always appreciate it when somebody is willing to and eager to teach on how to play and to ease you into it. Or even if they throw you into the fire, it's like, okay, we're gonna have fun with this, right? We're gonna throw you in the fire because that's why you're gonna be able to learn this game. But it is okay that we're going to do this. You are going to make a lot of mistakes, and that is totally fine. We're gonna laugh it off. We're gonna have so much fun, and that's how you're going to learn. And I think that's the thing too, right? Is like, again, where you don't feel that pressure of, oh, well, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to start, or it seems so, extensive, expansive, or too costly too, and to get involved and to kind of ease people into it, I think is a wonderful way to do so. Again, I do mention Gamers Guild a number of times because I just appreciate how much they do. They do they start doing these events where it's like learn to play events, where literally they will mention that they have a whole bunch of games set up and you can just go and there's a staff member or somebody there, a volunteer staff member that's going to teach me, intentionally there to teach you on how to play the game. I thought that was also a really fun thing too, and also again encourages people to come into the space to try out these different games. So it basically becomes a win-win with the LGS, bringing people in the door, and then a win for people that have always been curious about how to play this game, but I don't know anybody that plays it, or I have no idea on how to learn how to play this game, and it's a way to introduce them to different aspects. So,
I think also, especially if your local game store, you feel like it is a good environment and there are good people there who are invested in helping promote those kinds of gameplay situations, they're a great resource. If you're the type of person, or these friends you're trying to help are the type of people who are like, I don't know if I want to go up and ask questions of other people, go up to the person who runs the store and be like, hey, I'm interested in trying to run this kind of game and I need help finding players. And a lot of times the game store owners and people will happily be that person to go out and be like, hey, I see you're interested in this. This person's trying to run a game. You want to, they'll facilitate.
Do either of you have any?
I was just gonna kind of speak to it, like that transparency you were talking about, but like for part of my story, I was super shy when I started LARPing. It was through a comic book store, but people came to me And one of the things that I learned quickly is that they were helping me through my own journeys of self-discovery. And so kind of maybe trying to hone in on those shy people and very calmly, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Let us help you through this. And
Asking
for especially the
questions.
shyer ones, is that they're building a character, just like that one person creating their own non-binary character.
Yeah.
That's a piece of their journey, and that's
100%.
going to help them out. And so just, taking those people, especially the younger ones, under your wing, I mean, that's what helped me and helped me find the best friends of my very life that I still hang out with to this day. And one of them recently published, so congrats.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's also important too. Is to again, like some of these games feel like they're so unreachable, and especially for a younger generation. And I know the Pokemon community is fantastic about that too. They have done a wonderful job, especially at their events, of having these what they're called play labs, and they are intentionally designed for people of all ages, but especially kids, to learn how to play the games, and again in a safe and welcoming environment. And I've also noticed a number of Pokemon players, both video game and card game, are very encouraging for anybody to learn on how to play that game. And again, like bottom line, is Pokemon's meant for kids anyway. So, but I found it very, they go out of their way to make sure that's very family friendly too, and I've noticed that as well. So, again, making sure, kind of going back and revolve around the same thing, making sure it's a safe and welcoming environment, and especially for gaming that can be very daunting. I'm naturally an introvert, so I know that feeling of like I don't want to be, I don't want to bother anybody else. I'm just gonna look, and this looks really cool and fascinating, but I don't know if this is something that I can do. And sometimes all it takes is that one person that gives you a little bit of a nudge, and again, like asking you those questions and be like, it's not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah.
It's like it's not as daunting as you think it is. It's not as complicated.
Cost prohibitive as you think it is.
Cost prohibitive as you think it is. It's okay if you end up being silly. I remember, it took me a while to get out of my shell to actually have a character. Like my first D&D experience, it was literally just a version of me, but even more recluse.
As most of our first characters
Yeah,
tend to be.
even a more recluse version of myself. But it gave me a chance to understand the gameplay and things like that too, and explore. Daphne's been always a fantastic of weaving my character into the narrative, and that helped me explore the character more and to come out a little bit more about who I am and my character specifically because of that reason. Because my character had purpose in the narrative. It wasn't just along for the ride, and that was a great help. And also, Daphne does a great job of having side conversations with every member of the group as well, to be like, okay, where do you see your character fitting in this part of the story, or where we can put them in? And again, I think that's also a big part about inclusivity, is being a core part of their journey, not just necessarily along for the ride. And I think that's also extremely important as well, because I feel like, yes, the initial contact is extremely important, but continuing, right? Because there are some people that may be involved with the group, just feel like they're just there.
And sometimes they will disengage, and you kind of have to bring them back and be like, hey, what's Captain Starkiller the 13th, what's their deal? What are they thinking right now? And how can we get them, to be invested in the world? Because at the end of the day, if they have no reason to be invested, they're not gonna be.
Absolutely. I got like a minute or two left here. I think I can ask a couple of other questions real quick for you, Daph. So what game are you into right now?
I have been, I've been obsessively playing Dead by Daylight a lot. I don't know if you know what that game is. It's like a horror 4 versus 1 survival thing with all sorts of big name killers like Michael Myers, the Xenomorph, Chucky, Freddy Krueger. That one's pretty great. I love playing cooperative on that. And then Valheim has also been a big one recently. It's like Viking Minecraft is the best way I could explain it, with like Souls-like combat, kind of.
Building.
Lots of building. Beautiful building. Oh my God, you should see the mountain lodge that I constructed.
You know, it's so funny. I love those building games, but like these, I played Minecraft. It's aging a bit, but I played Minecraft like the first time, like 3-4 months ago, which is crazy. But like I remember as a kid, like I was super into Roller Coaster Tycoon. Like I loved those games, and those are fun because again, that's like another sense of exploratory nature. It's just like kind of building things and constructing things and so forth. I know you tried to get me to Valheim once or twice.
One of these days.
Yeah, I know. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say one other honorable mention that I haven't actually started playing yet, but I'm waiting for the book to arrive, is Shadow Dark for tabletop. That system seems really cool, and I'm excited to give it a shot.
One more thing, definitely we'll wrap up because we're running out of time here. But
Sure.
we talk about all different kinds of topics and so forth, but if you were able to, like, if I just came to you, Daph, and said, I want to be a part of a community, I want to start a community and so forth, and I don't even know where to begin, and you're only able to give one piece of advice to that.
Oh no, only one.
Only one. You only have the opportunity. Let's say in business it's called the elevator pitch, right? So you got like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So if you had like 10, 15 seconds, what would they answer?
There's no wrong place to start, just start. And be consistent as you can. And open to the people you want to connect with. Make sure you're listening to them, what they're interested in, and you can't fail.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I know some people are coming in for the next panel, but I still appreciate you all here.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Good question. Where can we find you online?
Oh, yeah, we're not good about self-promotion. Daphne, go ahead. You start.
Sure. So, if you are interested in following any of my musical ventures, my band Daphne and the Glitches is at DAT Glitches. The name is actually Daphne + the Glitches. You say it Daphne and the Glitches, but just in case you're typing it in. You can also look up at, I think it's Fairy Bones Music, and at Ghost Moon, and there's an E at the end of Moon, are the other two bands I'm in. And then if you're just interested in my nonsense, that's probably where I'm going to be advertising. I'm just getting back into streaming, and brain is dead. But it's just at Daph, DAPH, Green, with, again, an extra E at the end.
And for myself, so my podcast is called Creatives Prevail, just like how it's spelled. The handles are fortunately, all Creatives Prevail, surprisingly. So, at Creatives Prevail, I interview everyone from music artists, podcasters, social media influencers. In fact, I was just at Pokemon Worlds a couple of weeks ago and interviewed an influencer over there about Pokemon and Disney. It was so much fun. But it's all about, if you ever were looking to be a creator, or you are a creator and just want to learn about other people's successes and challenges and so forth, it's all their origin stories of where they lived up to today. And I interview everyone from people that are just starting out and people that are doing it for decades. So that's my podcast. And then I also stream on Twitch, and that's Omelette Prevail. Omelette like the egg. Omelette Prevail. And I stream everything from Magic Arena, Hearthstone, Once Blue Moon, Pokemon TCG. I do sometimes Slay the Spire, a lot of the TCG games, things like that on there and so forth. And hopefully soon I'm going to probably add another segment that's all going to be about talking about being a content creator as well. So, excellent. Well, we're going to get out of here. Thank you all so much again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play-In Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, please check out D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Ragnarok Enroll a Scion Hero to Ragnarok Story. Also, check out our Patreon page for more content and behind-the-scenes things, as well as joining us for a one-shot game or two.